Hello, I am Denise Mitchell with 1000 Days, here to offer you all the third and final installment of our NICU Awareness Month video campaign. This time around, we're talking about barriers and solutions. I'm joined by Erika Goyer, family advocate and director of communications at the National Perinatal Association. Erika, let's just dive right in. What's next and why does this matter?
Oh gosh, this has been such an exciting discussion, and it has been so interesting to engage with you and talk about all these issues that we all care so much about. I think one of the things we do is, why do we do this awareness thing in the first place? And the reason is because, unless you've had a NICU experience or unless you become a parent or given birth, you don't know a lot about these things. And it's that way with the NICU. Only a certain portion of us are ever going to be in the NICU. And it's important that we have awareness, that we know what it is, what happens there, and what some of the issues are. But my goodness, awareness isn't enough. We don't have a day just so that we can talk about it for a few days, and then not. The whole reason for doing awareness is what we're going to be talking about today, which is turning that awareness into action to make things better. We've described the situations, we're talking about the problems. Let's get to solutions.
I love that. Let's get to solutions. So, considering opportunities for further action, research shows that paid family and medical leave has important benefits for the health and well-being of both the mom and the baby in the postpartum period, or that fourth trimester. So tell us, Erika, why is paid leave especially important for NICU families?
Oh boy. It's the same reason that we talk about the 1000 days, the fourth trimester, and everything else. Giving birth isn't a singular event. Becoming a family isn't a singular event. It happens over time. And like you were saying, this involves all the aspects of the family medical leave needs, because it's family and it's medical. And especially when they're in the NICU, something has happened that has necessitated that your family and your baby, and maybe you, now need this level of critical care. So it is so important, first of all, that everybody just has that foundation of what you need to give birth, which is not a 48, 72-hour hospital stay. It's beyond that.
Yes.
And with our NICU families, we have to add an extra level of support, because what happens is, if you're one of those families that is fortunate enough, and there are a few of us that are fortunate enough to have paid family leave benefits or medical benefits that cover medical leave, with NICU families, it now becomes when to take them, because the time that you are spending in the hospital is lengthened. And sometimes you don't know how long it's going to be. People often say, how long am I going to be in the NICU? How long is my baby going to be here? You don't know, because as we talked about all week, you have to hit those milestones. You have to be well enough to go home with your family. So as parents, you end up with this dilemma of, okay, I have benefits, so do I use them now while my baby's in the NICU, so that I can recover, so that I can get to know them, so that we can spend this time together becoming, a unit? Or do I need to save that time for after my baby has had all their care and they're discharged to come home? Because now I'm bringing home my baby, not just with all the usual needs that you would need the medical leave and family leave for, but you have these other needs now of having a baby who's needed critical care. And you need more time to adjust becoming a parent, and maybe a parent to a baby that now has special medical or developmental needs, either short-term or long-term. You don't know. So you have to make this calculation. And if you're a family that doesn't have benefits, we all know that you start making very hard choices about who can be home to be a caregiver and how to still sustain a household economically.
What an incredibly difficult decision, especially following birth, especially following hospitalization of a new baby. Wow. So 1000 Days has widely supported the Family Act, and that is a piece of legislation that would provide comprehensive paid family and medical leave to all workers in the U.S., and that covers workers in all companies, regardless of size, and that offers about 12 weeks of partial income throughout the time taken for personal or family leave. So at this point, though, because the paid federal leave policy does not exist and insurance is largely tied to employment, beyond passing the Family Act, how do we ensure that NICU families retain access to quality and affordable health insurance?
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting. And all these issues, of course, are amplified with COVID-19 right now, and also are so critical because we're looking at a time where we may go in one direction with healthcare again or in another direction with healthcare again.
Mhm.
So all the gains that we've made through careful legislation, we need to retain. So, I mean, we love to see the ACA expanded and implemented in the way it's written. But beyond that, we have to all recognize that as a country, we have decided that this period of time, the perinatal period, is a time when we want people covered. It's best
Yes.
public health policy. It's the best policy, cost wise. It's just the right thing to do. So we do it. We make sure that we have Medicaid programs and CHIP perinatal to cover families during this period. And it's needed. I mean, we know that 40 to 50% of pregnancies, and by extension, NICU stays, are covered
Mhm.
under Medicaid, and that's good because Medicaid is one of the few insurance setups where we recognize you need developmental care, you need breastfeeding support, you need all these interventions, and we're going to give them to you because it makes sense for us to give them to you. So Medicaid actually acts as a model for how we
Yes.
can deliver care best during this period, and families are fortunate to have it because it
Yeah.
makes, I mean, talk about making an impact over a lifetime. This public health investment is the one with the biggest payoffs.
I love that. And one thing 1000 Days has continued to drive forward is that going back to paid leave is a public health imperative too. So we're seeing so many correlations here. One
Yeah.
thing to celebrate is introduced just this month is the new No Surprise Bills for New Moms Act. And that is legislation that will protect new parents from surprise medical bills by simplifying the enrollment process for newborns and healthcare coverage, automatically enrolling newborns the first 30 days, and then offering a 60-day window for any special circumstances.
I mean,
We're
the way
so
we were
excited.
doing it before was just wrong. I mean, the truth is
Yeah.
you know, when you're a new parent, you're lucky if you're sleeping and if
Yes.
you're managing to feed your baby and just
Hmm.
survive. And then we ask you to be your insurance case manager on top of it all. I
On
mean,
top of it all,
yeah.
it is a mess. And another point of celebrating real quickly is that we are so excited that the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act passed the House this week with overwhelming bipartisan support. We're so excited about that. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act is a bill that requires employers to make reasonable accommodations for pregnant employees and ensure that workers cannot be discriminated or retaliated against for seeking those accommodations. Final note, Erika, highlighting the needs of NICU families from both the parent perspective and the professional advocate perspective. What would you like our audience to know as it relates to barriers and solutions? What would you like the final takeaway to be?
Well, again, I think it's how we started out. We've done so much this week to raise awareness and to bring education about what some of the issues are, what's, universal to all of us, and then what's specific for NICU families. But that's no good if we don't turn it into action. And action requires legislation, and it requires going to the experts. There's often a vast difference between why legislation is brought up and authored and drafted and then what gets passed and then how it gets implemented. So we want to make that as efficient and informed a process as possible. And like I said, that begins with going to the experts. And the experts, we know who they are. First of all, they're the families and the patients
Uh-huh.
because they have the lived experience of going through this, whether they expected it or not. And most of us did not expect it. We adapted. They know these issues from every angle, from the economic angle, from the medical angle, from the psychosocial support angle. They know what this looks like and what the impact is on families. And then beyond that, it's going to the providers. We have amazing providers who then have this perspective of having looked at the experiences of multiple families across time and seeing how the interaction between insurance coverage and legislation and families' needs, how that gets interpreted into medical practice, and ultimately how that affects what the outcomes are. So you already have this incredible pool to go to by starting by talking to families and patients and providers. But then beyond that, we have to remember that collectively, we have a lot of wisdom in this because we know what works. We've been doing what works for a while. And if we expand upon those policies that work, like Medicaid, if we call on people who, I mean, like we talked, 1 in 10 of us is likely to have this NICU experience if we become parents. And that means that all of us probably have some sort of relationship to this topic. So that means that we have, you know, doctors who have found themselves with a baby in the NICU. We have advocates and communications professionals who end up giving birth early and they find themselves in the NICU. We have legislators who find themselves becoming a grandparent to a child who was born early or born with special medical needs. So this is something that we all have a stake in and we all have expertise to bring to the table. We need to sit down and again talk about these things that work and that we know work well, like paid family leave, like protecting people from discrimination by providing time to become a family. It's the best possible investment we can make in public health. But then just it's an investment in making sure that we have families and professionals who can continue to contribute and to be a part of our collective community and who aren't sidelined, that we don't lose them because they had this medical family emergency.
Wow. And on that note, thank you so much, Erika. It has been such a joy joining together 1,000 Days in the National Perinatal Association. And now, in celebration of our NICU families, we're lighting our screens green.